Hello and welcome, my creative friends. I'm so glad you're here. I have lots of tips and techniques to share as we create this mixed media canvas layered with embellishments and textures. You'll learn how to create a textured background, build layers with chipboard, ephemera, flowers, and molded pieces, use metallic paint to highlight these beautiful clocks, color this fabulous chipboard with sprays, create a grungy finish on molded pieces with paints and metallic wax, use white gesso to soften the colors, and add beaded texture to the flowers and background. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you're new to my channel. To receive notifications of future videos, you can click on the bell icon. Let's get started by preparing our canvas. First, brush white gesso onto this 6 by 8 inch canvas. Even though it's already primed, there are a few marks on the surface to cover up. Also, we'll be using color sprays and water to create the background, so this extra coat of gesso will give us a great base to work on. I like a good bargain, so when I heard that the Dollar Tree was selling canvases, I picked one up to try out. It worked well for this mixed media decor piece, and I'll be keeping them in mind the next time I want to create a canvas project. We're using the top fleur-de-lis section of this beautiful stencil to apply grainy texture paste. Apply the paste on the center of the canvas first, leaving tapered organic edges at the top and bottom. I chose to go with the textured background to go behind the embellishments, leaving a lighter area around the edges. This will help draw your eye to move across the design. Go back and add more stenciling to the edges, loosely forming a cross shape. I prefer to use a palette knife to apply the medium. Gently but firmly scrape across the paste until you see the design of the stencil. If you leave paste that is so thick that you can't see the underlying pattern, it will be difficult to remove the stencil with a clean image. If you scrape too hard, you can push the medium under the stencil, muddying the design, and you may even damage intricate stencils. You can fill in any empty spaces like I do here. I wanted the design to taper a little more toward the edges, so scraped off a bit of the stenciled paste to get the shape I wanted. Since the texture paste will absorb color differently than the gessoed canvas, I went back in off camera and gave those areas I had scraped a quick brush of gesso. Now set it aside or use a heat tool to dry before moving on to the next step. Now it's time to add color to highlight this gorgeous texture. Spritz with water first, then add Little Birdie Black Currant Color Splash, followed by a bit more water. Tilt the canvas so the color will flow into all the nooks and crannies created by the texture paste. Excess color can be removed with a paper towel, cloth, or baby wipe. Add a little water to any stubborn spots and they will come right off. Remember that extra coat of gesso we added at the beginning? That provides a nice barrier against the fabric canvas so that this color can be removed now. For visual interest, use a second shade of purple by adding Grape Crush Color Splash. A little goes a long way with this color, and I applied more than I really needed. No problem, I simply spritzed with water and blotted off the excess with a towel, then dabbed on more of the redder blackcurrant color. To move and blend the two shades, spritz with water, then tilt the canvas. Remove any drips or excess color and set aside while working on the other embellishments. Now let's move on to embellishments with these molded pieces. The colors are pulled from the gorgeous birds and berries ephemera we'll be using. Start by mixing the wild wasabi with a bit of black gesso to darken it up a little. Randomly brush this mixture onto the pieces. As mentioned in a previous video, I have a container of molded pieces ready to go for projects. These are older ones made with paper clay before I started using resin. I never quite got the hang of using clay, so they have quite a few imperfections, and the ornate keyhole piece is even broken, but that works for the grungy effect I'm going for here. Brush on some of the wild wasabi that hasn't been shaded. Spritz on a little water to help the colors blend and flow into the nooks and crannies. Give them a quick dry, then highlight with the dark mint color. Once it's dry to the touch, add more highlights with Glimmer Moss metallic wax. To avoid a heavy application of wax, I rubbed my loaded brush over a paper towel before applying the wax to the molded pieces. Let's create a gilded effect on this sweet feather. Start by spritzing with Mocha Color Splash, then water to lighten the color and help it flow into the crevices. Brush with a couple light coats of golden glaze metallic paint to achieve shimmering highlights. Now we'll use that leftover gold paint to highlight the texture on this ornate clock. I started by lightly applying the paint with my finger. I rubbed most of the paint off so there is just a thin layer of gold left on my fingertip. Even with the lightest touch, the numbers on the clock face are so delicate that it's nearly impossible to highlight them without getting a little paint behind them. That's okay because this is more of a background piece and I'm going for a grungy look, so those smudges fit right in. You could also use a makeup sponge if you don't like messy fingers. The detail around the edge is deeper than the rim, so I needed to use a light touch with a paintbrush to color this area. Continue painting and rubbing until all the texture is highlighted. Don't forget to rub a little paint around the sides. Isn't this little birdie chipboard clock gorgeous with such amazing and intricate design? To color, start by thinning down golden glazed metallic paint with quite a bit of water. My goal was to add a light shimmer without filling in the etched numbers. Unfortunately, even the thinned paint filled in the etching enough that the numerals weren't too visible once the paint dried. I try to look at situations like this as opportunities and rearrange the final design so that the numerals would be more or less covered up, while still allowing the gorgeous laser-cut scrollwork to shine. I try to be transparent as I share these techniques with you so that you can see how mishaps can be transformed with a little imagination. I like to call them happy mistakes, since I often like to change more than what I had originally intended. I thought I'd try brushing Mocha Color Splash over the etched numbers to see if that would make them more noticeable. I adore the antique effect it gives, so ended up applying it across the entire piece. However, the mist did not settle into the etching to make the numerals more visible as I had hoped. Trim the top and bottom edges of this brick window chipboard for a more organic feel. Spritz with Blackcurrant Color Shine and Lindy's Vivacious Violet Moonshadow Mist for a beautiful brown finish with violet highlights. Dry with a heat tool, then swipe through the mist on the craft mat a couple more times to add depth to the color. After the final swipe through the mist, I set it aside to air dry. The colors move and set differently when being air dried than when using a heat tool. I prefer the more organic appearance achieved by air drying. Add more visual interest by adding script stamping with permanent black ink around the outside edges of the textured area. There is no stamping in the center since it will be covered by embellishments. Add color around the edges of the canvas with pan pastels. They blend beautifully and can be mixed to coordinate perfectly. Magenta is the focal color with touches of violet and rich gold. You could substitute many other mediums here, from color shine spray, to distress ink and get a similar effect. Your applicator will depend on the medium you choose to use. Pan pastels are best applied with foam. Apply a wider swath of color around the corners. After applying the pan pastels all the way around, I go back in and do some more blending and pull the color onto the canvas a bit more. Add color to the sides as well. Off camera, I went back and blended out the edges with a foam makeup wedge to soften them. You can see the blended edges here. I sprayed the pastels with a matte fixative out in my garage to avoid the fumes in my studio. Now it's time to arrange all the embellishments and adhere them to the canvas. The brick window is offset to the right a little to give room for the ornate corner to be adhered without sticking off the edge. I only add glue to the center of the window piece and along the long edge of the corner. These areas will be covered by embellishments, so if the glue splooges out, it won't be visible. Next, arrange the clock and birdhouse, which will anchor the remaining embellishments. Add pieces of foam tape where needed for the pieces to lie flat. I have found that tape doesn't always stick to the mixed media surfaces well, so I add an extra dab of glue to achieve a nice secure hold. If you don't have foam tape, you could use pieces of chipboard to raise and hold your embellishments in place. I'm using a mix of gorgeous little birdie flowers along with beautiful pre-cut and glittered images from the Birds and Berries Ephemera pack. A full supply list of Little Birdie products with links can be found in the description below, along with a coupon code for their US online store. Remember that script stamp I used earlier? It's retired now, but still one of my favorites. It was designed by my dear friend Donna Salazar. I've always enjoyed adding grungy elements to feminine projects, so when I first saw Donna's girly grunge style and designs, she became a huge inspiration for me. Donna took a chance on me back in 2013 when she gave me the opportunity to be on her amazing international design team. Donna is not only an amazingly talented artist, but is also a great role model with a generous heart. Although she stepped away from the art industry for a while to devote time to her sweet grandson who has autism, she's back creating with Gel Press as their Autism Awareness Ambassador. There's a link in the description below to the video of her most recent creation. Do you have a creative mentor? Someone special who's been an encouragement and role model to you? I'd adore for you to leave a comment telling me who that is and how they've impacted your life and art. These lovely resin pieces extend the design and help draw your eye across the canvas to take in the beautiful details of the entire piece. Don't hesitate to cut your ephemera apart. I cut these beautiful flowers into 2 pieces to use in different spots on the canvas. It's easier to remove the clock hand than to place the sentiment over top of it. I I went back to my flower stash to pull out 2 more flowers to fill in this empty area. I lay out what I need to complete the project as I'm filming, but sometimes things come together differently as I glue everything down. Once I have my embellishments in place, I like to give the project a critical once over to see if everything's balanced without any open areas that need filled in. Often I even take a quick photo with my phone to see how it photographs. That gives a different viewpoint and can be quite helpful. Use a makeup wedge to apply light and airy touches of gesso to the flowers, chipboard, and resin pieces, using a brush in the harder to get areas. Also, I tuck a piece of plastic packaging under the flowers in awkward places to prevent unwanted smudges. To add a little extra bling, I brush over the flowers and background with soft gel medium, then sprinkle on little birdie orchid and rose microbeads, along with iridescent seed beads from my stash. You can find a list of Little Birdie supplies used on this canvas, along with a coupon code for their US store in the description below. Here are video links with more techniques for your mixed media creations. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day. I'll be back soon with another video.